I remember the slow scrape of my chair on tile as I sat, knees knocking lightly at the end of my mother's table. The kitchen pulsed with the companionship of familiar voices. My cousin Miguel telling his fisherman stories too loudly, my sister Sophia curling her hands around a glass, big brown eyes, following the steam of chorizo and lentils curling up to the yellow ceiling. It was Sunday, and outside our Barrio Alto apartment, sunset draped gold over the tramlines and tiled walls. Inside, we orbited each other with the ease of long routine, everyone except for me anchored oddly, tongue heavy behind my teeth. When my uncle Antonio arrived late and already smelling of sagas, he dropped himself into the frayed chair across from me. His laughter bounced from corner to corner. "And so, my little genius," he boomed, tearing a hunk of bread, "what news? Still fixing up those fiddles in the shed, or have you moved on to real work at last?" He tipped his head at my mother, who looked only at the chicken she was carving. Miguel's head snapped. "Mama says he spends all day dusting wood and humming with dead composers." The table rippled with a tight, tired amusement. I watched my hands, calloused and pine-stained. "I'm building a viola, commissioned, actually. From Senor Carrillo, the conductor at the National Theatre." The words came out too quietly, the depth of my pride tangled in cheap nerves. Sophia smiled, soft but small, her hand almost reaching for mine before slipping away. Antonio chuffed, "A commission, Santa Maria," he spread his fingers wide, spraying crumbs. "And when you finish this one, what then? Another? Is anyone buying these toys?" "I am, it's not, these are not toys." Heat climbed to my face. "They're instruments, violas, guitars, cellos, people play them in orchestras on stages." The tablecloth puckered under my grip, the kitchen pressed in with silence. My mother sliced, scraped the knife over the bone with unnecessary force. Antonio broke first. "No one in this city gets rich sanding wood. The only luthiers left are half-blind old men down in Barrio de Grasa. You think you'll be famous or rich?" His tone was all bluster, but I knew what floated beneath. Laughter, but with pointed edges. Miguel shrugged. "If you want music, play it, not build it." My father finally cleared his throat. "It would not hurt to think about plumbing." "Antonio's foreman is hiring." He didn't quite meet my eyes. I pressed back the sting. "I don't want to be a plumber." I stared at the bowl of olives in front of me, the pits sharp and black as seeds. "This is what I want. I build things that sound, that last." "Dreams," Antonio leaned back, smiling ruefully. "We all had them once, then the rent comes." The dinner shrunk after that. No one mentioned the commission again. Later, as plates were cleared and the city blinked its lights awake, I took my jacket, sleeve torn at the wrist, glue hardened in the lining, and walked down the stairs. The air was cold, teasing with salt from the river. My resolve, thin as tissue, was buoyed only by memory, by the darkly sweet resonance of the cello I'd mended last spring, the reverence in Senhora Luz's trembling hands when she'd played its first note again. It was a feeling they would never understand, perhaps no one would except for musicians. That was the last time I mentioned my work at home. I kept to my workshop during the day, a squat room behind the train lines, thick with sawdust and the stink of old varnish. The radio spat out fado and the occasional football score. Wood shavings settled in drifts over my boots. Sometimes, between carving a bridge and fitting a neck, I'd pause to listen to the city vibrating through the walls, the barking vendors at Mercado de Ribeira, the metallic cough of the trams. At night I made my own dinner beneath an exposed bulb. I fingered stringed instruments for hours, chasing the right resonance. The Carrillo commission stretched on. I ruined one top plate, botched a scroll. The conductor asked for a certain warmth in the tone, a shadow printed onto the first bow stroke. I sanded, glued and tuned until my wrists throbbed. Occasionally my mother called. Her voice slipped through the speaker, careful with worry. "Comes esta semana, will you come this week?" "Talvez," I said. I knew it was her way of checking I hadn't starved. Sophia, braver, sometimes stopped by after university, bringing tarta de nata, leaving a coin on my bench as though paying for an unmade violin. She never asked if I regretted it. "It's loneliness, this kind of dream?" she asked once, teeth worrying her bottom lip. I shrugged. "Only sometimes when the glue won't hold or the money is gone too quick." She squeezed my arm, then left. Time passed. I finished Carrillo's viola. When he came to collect, he turned it over in his hands, knocked lightly on its ribs, ran the bow once along the strings. Silence, his face unreadable. "Quien fez o verniz, who did this varnish?" "I did." He played 1, 2 phrases, all chromatic hairpins and swelling. My chest knotted, he nodded. "Not bad, rapaz, not bad." He paid me more than I'd asked. That money bought a better lamp and a few good planks of spruce from the north. Commissions trickled in cellos, guitars, and ancient banjo. Still, I fed more dust into my lungs than real meals. I playing chase with bills. Out in my street, neighbors muttered about the madman with the violin necks for arms. When I smiled, most looked away. Once, I saw Antonio leaning out of a tram, his eyes sliding over me without stopping. If he recognized me, he never said. Years like that measured in wood and stains, quiet pride and hunger. Then one afternoon, while I fitted a soundpost for an old violin, with Bach's partita skipping through my thoughts, the phone rang. I barely recognized the voice on the line, crisp and formal. "This is Yulia Dzerzhinsky, director of the Lisbon Sinfonietta. We're looking for a luthier for an urgent commission. Your name was given to us by Maestro Carilho." My heart stuttered. Yes, I'm available. She explained, their guest soloist, the world-famous cellist Rafael Tavias, had arrived with a cracked instrument. He needed a local replacement, a cello of serious quality, by this Friday for the festival. Panic, brief and cold, sliced through me. "Friday, but Maestro says you are the best in the city. Can you do it, Senor Rocha?" I heard myself promise I could. I set to work that night, hands trembling. I had an unfinished cello, 3/4 ready. Beautiful flamed maple, a belly of Sitka spruce, its F-holes just carved. Over 5 days I gave myself to it, shaping the varnish, truing the fingerboard, the pegs, the nut. I skipped meals, barely slept. There was no room for error. At last, on Thursday evening, I slid the bridge beneath the strings, tuned them up. I carried the cello, wrapped in canvas, up the battered tram to Sao Carlos. Rain needled down the glass, city lights blurring. When I met Tavias and Yulia in the rehearsal studios, I laid the cello gently onto a cloth. Fear clawed at my gut. He looked at the instrument, ran a finger along the purfling, tapped the ribs. He took his bow, raised it, and made the first note speak. It was a moment out of time. The note, not just a sound, but a voice, dark and amber as old honey, swelled into the empty room. Tavias smiled. He played again, then began a batch sweet, swirl after swirl of notes, each one slicing clean and true through the air. Yulia nodded, her eyes softening. "Can you make another just like this?" I couldn't stop smiling. "If you wish." They paid me well enough I could breathe for months. When Tavias played my cello that Sunday in front of the full house at Sao Carlos, my knees nearly buckled in the wings. Sitting with the stagehands, I watched as 1,000 people applauded an instrument I'd poured my life into, yet no one in my family knew, except perhaps Sophia if she read the paper. After the concert, commissions came faster. German quartet players, rich bankers' wives, world travelers, all suddenly wanted my hands. Few cared what my name was, but when the Sinfonietta's menu for the next season was printed, my cello appeared. The press called me the Lisbon craftsman. The city tipped, not with applause but with acceptance. I moved from the shed to a small white-walled shop behind Sao Bento, with enough light for morning and enough courage to hang my name on the bell. Still, I never went home. Some years later, a heavy envelope arrived at my shop, the address written in my mother's trembling hand. "Sophia's wedding," the card inside announced, soft blue paper, gold trim. She was marrying a banker from Cascais, the reception to be at the gardens of Palacio de Frontera. Family all coming, it promised. "Please come." I smoothed the invitation with shaking hands, thumbed the white edge. My stomach twisted, caught on the rusted memory of that Sunday dinner, laughter and silence, breadcrumbs, pitiless pride. For a week I left the invitation tacked to the wall, watching it flutter in the breeze from my open window. The city moved past, tour buses, students, the crack and whine of tram brakes. Each time I passed the blue card, something inside me softened and then hardened again. I called Sophia the day before her wedding. In her voice there was no expectation, only joy. "Ven hermano, so isso, poor Mim, come, brother, for me." So on Saturday I put on my best shirt, the one Sophia had bought me the year before, and my old black boots. I walked the cobbled roads north, taking the tram at Campo Martia's city crowd pressing close and warm. The morning was bright, wisteria spilling over the palace walls. Guests milled about, all soft linen and tendrils of perfume, sunlight glancing over painted tiles. A few heads turned as I stepped through the gate, voices wove amongst the clipped boxwoods. "He's the instrument one, that cousin," someone whispered. Miguel, broader and older, clapped me on the back, awkward but not unfriendly. My mother in lavender folded me into her arms immediately. I pressed my cheek to her hair, breathing deep the strange, bittersweet scent of talc and rosemary. "Come, let's greet Sophia," she said, steering me towards the terrace. Sophia, radiant and laughing, held my hands tight. "You came," she said, voice thick with happiness. The ceremony passed in a warm haze, words and tears ribboned together. After, under white canopies, laughter and sunlight, Antonio found me. "Señor Luthier," he said, mock bowing. "We see pictures of your work sometimes, papers, magazines, all that. Quite something, Minha says." I looked at his sun-red face, the creases at his eyes from years of squinting off riverboats. There was no irony in his voice, no bluster, just a tiredness and maybe a hint of perplexed admiration. "I'm still at it," I said quietly. "It's all I ever wanted." He shrugged, handed me a glass of wine. "Ah, well, not everyone gets to be the crazy one, eh?" That should have been enough, yet tension simmered between the ivory plates and wine glasses. The old ache along my ribs where pride had once burned, faded now to an ember. It was during the reception, as the sun turned scarlet and glasses refilled, that it happened. One of Sophia's friends, an amateur violinist, was showing off her instrument to a tight knot of guests on the lawn. The conversation drifted towards music, the concert at São Carlos that would close the festival tomorrow. Someone, the best man, perhaps full of courage and champagne, laughed that Lisbon's instrument wizard lived just across the garden. The talk grew, guests whispering about the cellos and violins seen in international hands. Miguel, ever eager, pressed into the cluster. "It's not just stories," he declared. "He's built for Tavares, the big concert 5 years ago, remember?" The group's curiosity flared, then focused on me. Antonio, perhaps emboldened by his second or third brandy, called across. "Prove it, rapaz, your fiddle's really magic." Before I could answer, a young violinist, nervous, red-cheeked, asked, "You brought one of your own, senor?" I shook my head, heat flaring to my cheeks. "I haven't, but," I gestured at the instrument in her hands. "May I try yours?" She passed it over, hesitant. It was a decent German violin, not overly fine, but as I tuned it, my heart kept pace, even and steady. I raised the bow. Silence fell. Even the kitchen staff at the edge of the party leaned closer. I played not fireworks but a slow fado, low and aching, the song my father played from old records as I built my first guitar at 18. I poured every abandoned hope, every sleepless night, every silent family meal into the music. The tune spun out, the notes filling the spaces between guests, between words unsaid. As the final chord faded, the silence held heavy and pure. For a moment no one moved. The violinist, hand to her mouth, whispered, "That was." Antonio stepped forward. He looked at me, eyes searching, pausing at the grit along my knuckles. "My God, Joe," he said, voice soft, almost incredulous. "I knew you made them, but I never thought, you can pull the world out of wood." I nodded, throat thick. He clapped me once on the shoulder, his old pride flickering to something warmer, humbled. Around us the family shifted, the old mockery gone, replaced by something like awe. Miguel cheered, others toasted. But in that hush, as dusk fell, I looked at my family, tough, small-hearted sometimes, but tethered to me by blood and memory, and I saw them not as judges but as part of the story, part of me. The place I'd once wanted to escape now pulled me back, anchor and sail both. Later, as the evening loosened into warmth and exhaustion, Sophia slipped her arm in mine. "You always belonged," she whispered, "even when we were too small to see it." I kissed her cheek, feeling finally, unsparingly home. I walk the streets of Lisbon often now, a city still brushing its own shoulders, heavy with music. My workshop's door is never locked. Musicians come, sometimes strangers, sometimes cousins. Occasionally my father visits, he never mentions plumbing. Antonio brings his damaged guitar and I fix it for the price of a glass of wine. At dinner, there is laughter again. Bread is broken, and with each note my instruments sing across the city's rooftops, my own silence breaks too, once and for all.